Okay, today I just want to chat a bit about how come the grains can be an issue and what is you need to watch out for with the grain issue. And a lot of you guys saw in the first week you had a pretty big loss of centimeters around your waist, and I sent some of you guys an email saying you've been bloated and it's time to address that bloating. And I saw the other day comment saying I'm so happy you're not bloating anymore. And I'm going to address some of the reasons why I don't recommend grains at all. And hopefully this will make things a bit more clearer. The main thing you need to understand is that everything starts in your gut. So your health is often determined by how well your gut's functioning. And it doesn't have to be as bloated as this guy, but very often we can see when I assess individuals that they're carried around by a large midsection that's mainly just because it's been bloated up through the food chain, the food they eat. And the first thing to think about is that in your gut you got 100 trillion microorganisms, so making us actually more bacteria than humans. And most of your functioning, most of your metabolism, most of your immune system is done through your gut functionality. So if it's not working, you can definitely see things like autism and Hashimoto's thyroidism, which is a typical issue with thyroid, or the typical one is inflammatory bowel disease, or which I see a lot of patients coming in through the door with, but also type 1 diabetes. You got to think about you mainly as your gut is one big tube going through your system. So your mouth is the entry hole and your rectum is the exit hole. So it's a closed circuit, and the system is dragging nutrients out of this tube in here. If there's for some reason is a leak somewhere, like on your water hose, there's a leak somewhere. Well, you know it's not going to be good for you. And the same in this case, the body is receiving a signal that it's under attack because there's a leak somewhere, and it will launch some sort of a self-defense mechanism. And even though it's something that you've been perceived as being, well, this should be good for me and healthy, it doesn't mean that it's going to be good for you. It might be that your gut can't break down these foreign substances, all these proteins that we find in grains, for instance. They can't break them down, and therefore they'll, over time, will start to wear and tear on your gut lining, and we'll see that in a second. I spoke to a girl the other day saying about how she doesn't have any symptoms like bloatingness or belly cramp, but here's some other signs and symptoms of a leaky gut: eczema, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, depression. So there's more to the picture than just the typical cramping or frequent toilet visits. It can be something in your food. The reaction can be a weight gain, it can be illness, joint pain, skin condition, fatigue, infertility. That's a huge one these days. Lack of concentration ability, particularly in kids. I've seen this one. The usual suspects which can cause the intolerances are grains, dairy, legumes, fruit, alcohol, but also vegetables. And one of you girls know about the vegetables can be an issue because it triggers a reaction in your case. The way you look at it is that within the grains and legumes you've got proteins, in this case gluten, you've got lectins, you've got phytic acid. Lectins is like an anti-nutrient. It's something that you cannot break down. An acid called phytic acid, and then you can always question the nutritional value of a grain or a legume. Gut irritation leads to irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, gaining weight, fatigue, skin acne, and inflammation. And inflammation is the one you want to control most of all, because this is where all the fun starts. The way you need to look at it is that everything on this planet is here. Well, the things on this planet are here with a certain sort of a microorganism to it, is here to reproduce itself. And we humans can always protect ourselves by running or by fighting. If you are a plant or a fruit, you cannot run and you cannot protect yourself in other ways than to develop some sort of a defense mechanism in your berries or in your seeds. Like a poison ivy, for instance, has got decided to make poison to defend itself. But these berries can often be an issue. If you look about blueberries and strawberries, they have a different approach. They're more like saying, well, we'll buy some and we'll take some. So they expect you to go out and do a poop out in nature, and therefore you spread the seeds from this berry out in nature. Therefore they will gain in size, you can kind of say, in volume. Whereas other compounds cannot be broken down, and that leaves you to trouble. the way it works is that these compounds have got an ability to resist gut enzymes, so they can't be broken down. They can breach the gut lining, which means they'll break through and they'll have a leaky gut at some point. They'll destroy cell membranes and destroy some of your healthy bacteria in your gut to help you digest food, and they can start communicating with other compounds as well. Often the major problem area is in wheat, and there's a protein in there that gliadin and glutenin together they make gluten, and that can be a trigger for many people. Gluten is a protein. It's almost found in all grains. Contain proteins. Oats doesn't contain gluten as such, but there's often a cross contamination, and there's often other issues with the oats, for instance. Gluten is a very hard protein to break down. Some parts pass on to our intestines intact. They can also have a compound. They contain compounds that turn off your enzymes, so you can't break down the grains. When we eat some of these compounds or eat this grain, sometimes we'll have a signal from our immune system saying there's something coming down here. I don't know what it is, but I should probably attack it, and that causes an immune response, and that immune response is believed to be a significant role of why we develop autoimmune diseases. And this guy is Alessio Fasano, is one of the lead guys into gluten intolerance and all things containing gluten. And he's very much of the impression that it will affect not just your gut lining, but also your other organs like skeletal systems, pancreas, kidneys, livers, and brain. And a typical classic one is celiac disease, where you have a small substance that your system cannot break down, and the way it should be done is that it's been broken down and taken through and into your bloodstream. But sometimes some of these foods can't actually be broken down, and you'll have some serious issues. Once these food compounds come through the barrier, they start making some, or you can sort of say, havoc to your system. And long story short, you develop some serious side effects. It's understood that and it's been shown that only 1 out of 8 who know they have celiac disease and have typical reactions to it. The remaining 7 have celiac disease but are not aware of it and not have the same reactions to it. We've also seen studies saying that 30% of the human population has the same gene disposition as celiacs, that meaning that they could have a reaction to gluten-containing grains, and then there are patients down here who don't have any issues as such. Gluten intolerance has been shown to affect the brain, the endocrine system, your stomach and your liver, your cells, your blood vessels, and the smooth muscle. Dr. Kenneth Fine, he's demonstrated that 1 out of 3 Americans are gluten intolerant, and that's a pretty huge number. This one here, I'm trying to show you that gliadin, which is part of the protein that combines together with glutenin makes gluten, that induces an increase in intestinal permeability and sonulin. And you're thinking, what the hell does this all mean? Well, wheat contain a protein called gliadin, and that's the one we're referring about. Intestinal permeability, what does that mean? Well, intestinal permeability and the tight junctions, which I showed you on the picture before, are tightly linked to autoimmunity, and celiac and type 1 are autoimmunity, and this is evidence of those two being tied in together. And then you say, well, what is autoimmunity? Well, autoimmunity is that respond from your system saying something is wrong here, and it starts attacking itself for some reason. And this can happen through an infection, a physical trauma, vaccination, or dietary factors such as leaky gut. And known or suspected autoimmune diseases that we see with a leaky gut are this list, and you'll find classics like autism or asthma, celiac, Crohn's, depression, type 1, eczema. You'll find on page 2 thyroidism. You'll find psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, and schizophrenia. So these are just some of them that are suspected to be connected to a leaky gut issue. The other part of the grain issue is the lectins, and lectins is an anti-nutrient you cannot break down. Within lectins you've got what's called wheat germ agglutinin, and you've got phytic acid. And the grains and the legumes and sometimes vegetables and fruit contain dietary lectins that are normally harmless, but sometimes they can cause a gut irritation and you'll find that grains are very high in phytic acid. Actually, nuts are also high in phytic acid, sometimes higher than some grains. And grains contain WGA, which is another dietary lectin. Legumes, potatoes, the skin of potatoes, soy, tomatoes, and peppers contain saponins, which is another lectin. Egg whites contain lysozyme, which is another lectin that can be issue for guys who've got autoimmune diseases. And dairy contains casein, which is also linked to gut permeability. And this study here says it all in the first few lines, that whole wheat bread is an important source of minerals, but also contains considerable amounts of phytic acids, which is known to impair the absorption. So it is well understood that phytic acid will lower your ability to absorb nutrients. And this study here is great to show you what it does actually. This phytic acid has been reported to impair the absorption of minerals and trace elements such as calcium, zinc and iron. Basically everything that we are short of in the Western world is calcium, zinc and iron. And again, this has been shown through the phytic acid in white bread will lower your absorption of these three nutrients or minerals. This one here is a funny one in the fact that they were looking for an anti-tumor drug, and they found that this WGA, wheat germ agglutinin, which is part of the grains as well, which is a dietary lectin, is a toxic compound and an anti-nutrial factor, but recent work has been shown that it may have potential as an anti-tumor drug, and it's a carrier for oral drugs. And they've shown that a nanomolar concentration of WGA, which is really nothing, is unexpectedly bioactive on the immune cell. So we have a reaction caused by a tiny amount of WGA. Insulin can also be affected by by eating WGA or by eating grains. You can lower your insulin sensitivity. But then someone will say, well, whole grains is what I've been told to do from the industry. I've been told to eat whole grains because they're really good for me. And I'll question that. First of all, the main nutrient density of various food groups show you that some ranked score for grains is 44, whole milk 44, fruits 48, veggies are 81, seafood 65, 50 for lean meats, and nuts and seeds are 38. So the higher the score, the more nutrients you actually find in there based on vitamins and some minerals. You also find that some will say that grains is a great source of protein, and again here's the list of the best source of protein. Leucine and valine are the most important B, C branching amino acids for maintaining and increasing your muscle mass, and you see that egg white is the best, whereas grains are third, fourth from the last. Then some will say, well, I need fiber for my stools, and you find that in Uncle Toby's cereal brands, for instance, which is highly refined, or even Weet-Bix, I'm going to say the same thing, is a refined cereal, you'll only find 6 grams of fiber versus a non-starchy veggie, which is like a carrot or a broccoli. You'll find 185 grams out of 1,000 calories. So there's way more fiber in the veg, and I guess we all kind of know that. And also speaking of fiber, you got two sorts of fibers. You got a fiber you find in veggies and fruit, and some degree nuts and seeds, which is called a soluble fiber, which help us heal the gut lining. Actually makes a bit of a fatty acid composition in your system. And then you got a fiber that's insoluble that you can't break down, and if anything, it helps you increase your stool frequency, and therefore, like the picture shows you, your toilet papers bill will go up. So that was a quick run through why I have an issue with grains, and this is just some of the issue I've got with it, other than it doesn't provide you with any sort of nutrients that you need in your life to survive. And like you guys will now experience, if you stayed off grains for these 45 days, you will most likely see a significant improvement once you've done with the 45 days, and hopefully for the better, feeling less bloated and feeling less sick.